So there's been different ways of raising money in the cryptocurrency space, all the way from Bitcoin, all the way to Ethereum. We've seen the videos of Vitalik offering Ethereum in exchange for Bitcoin, raising money to build out Ethereum, all the way to how Ethereum evolved into the ICOs, and then we evolved into initial DEX offerings, initial exchange offerings. So we're going to look at the past, present, and future of raising money within the cryptocurrency space. And if you're into this kind of content, then stick around for the whole video and don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. So guys, right off the gate, there's many ways of raising money. So of course, we've seen historically there's been things like ICOs, initial DEX offerings, initial exchange offerings. So if you heard of ICO, IEO, IDO, those are some of the things, and others evolved into IFO, initial financial offerings, or something like that. So all kinds of things fitting your narrative, but they're those fundamental ones like ICO, IDO, and the initial exchange offering. So what you're seeing on the screen is Maker's Place. So just like I just didn't want to use OpenSea, but it's a marketplace for trading NFTs. It's the one I used to use before the whole NFT thing blew up on OpenSea and all that. OpenSea existed, I guess this one existed, but OpenSea took that market share. So essentially you're buying and trading NFTs, and this platform is raising money off those fees. But that's something slightly different, but it's another way to raise money so that you can continue building whatever you're building. Why? Because, well, we don't know what this space is going to evolve into. So this is a way, if you manage your funds properly, then of course you can use them to build, to enter this crypto ecosystem. In yesterday's video, I talked about MetaZone. It's another example of a marketplace which is trading NFTs, metas, land, and creating some kind of utility. So they're using this platform to create value to the community, but they're also raising money, which if they were to manage properly, they can build out some interesting stuff as we move forward. Now, at the risk of being biased, guys, I've talked about Mobix as the move to earn ecosystem that I'm looking at. Why? Because they're built on Fetch.AI and I like Fetch. So actually, speaking of Fetch, Fetch is one of, just like BitTorrent as well. When you look at the launchpads, so initial exchange offering, you can have things like Binance Launchpad, which we're going to look at. The first two tokens that were launched on that exchange were the BitTorrent, which is on the Tron network, and Fetch.AI, which means they literally fronted that space of launching stuff on the Binance ecosystem, but also on exchanges. So these guys, not to get sidetracked, they built on Fetch.AI and they recently released their NFTs. So the reason why I use these ones, for example, as an example, is because first of all, I've talked about them, but also because you have a platform that developed something called Move to Earn. So they developed a use case first, then they launched the NFTs later to raise money to then continue building out this platform. They rather did not release the NFTs first and then try to create something else on top of create utility for those NFTs. What these guys did, they built utility first and then they launched the NFTs later to raise money. So I think that's pretty awesome. Guys, they're not very cheap though. They're not very cheap. They have the black, they have the what's this one called, the Mobix Tri-Miles exclusive. So obviously the NFT gold series, and then they have the silver series. So of course the black is currently going for 221 Atom. Guys, this is the time, the bear market. If you want to get stuff, this is not financial advice. Make sure you do your research before you FOMO into anything. And they're trading this one, the gold for 103, and I can't see the silver here. Maybe it has run out, or maybe the whitelist sale is over. I'm not too sure, but that one was going for a lower price, I think around 37 Atoms. So Atom is one of the biggest chains on the Cosmos ecosystem. I've talked about them here, but the reason why I'm talking about this is now these guys are interoperating with another platform called OmniFlix, which to be honest confuses me, because these guys seem to be innovating some really smart stuff in the Cosmos ecosystem. You can use them to launch your ecosystem, you can use them to participate in governance models, you can also use them to launch an NFT space within there. So these guys, the Mobix people, you can click on the link and it leads you to OmniFlix, which you can then use to buy that particular NFT. So the one that you're trying to purchase. Now these guys are, if you type for example Comdex, now it's comdex.omniflix is a decentralized exchange which allows you to participate in different governance models of the tokens that you hold in the Cosmos ecosystem. But guys, that's getting out of the purpose of this video. Now we talked about initial coin offerings. Back in 2017, they were essentially started by the Ethereum network. So that's when we saw that whole craze of tokens without a use case having market capitalizations of up to $600 million and so on. That's where we saw EOS which was supposed to be essentially one of the best tokens out there, because they were doing this resource model thing where you trade resources on the internet, virtual resources for the EOS token. Those guys raised $4 billion. And guess what happened? The SEC of the United States later sued them for raising a lot of money. Those guys took the 24 million fine, which is nothing compared to how much they raised, paid to the ACC, and they washed their hands off the EOS ecosystem. So that's an example of regulation doing real damage to people in this space, in case you're not sure. Anyway, guys, we're sidetracking a lot. There's a lot to talk about, but let me focus on what I wanted to talk about, which is ways of raising money. Now, this is what I talked about, the Binance Launchpad, which was in 2019, which was essentially one of the first, because the Binance ecosystem has innovated so much in the crypto space. So this was their first post. Binance Launchpad, the exclusive token launch platform for Binance, is planning to infer users to about one new token launch every month in 2019, starting with BitTorrent and Fetch.AI. So guys, there was this recognition of these tokens. This video is not about this, but it's about how these platforms raise money. And this is what the interface looks like. This is an example of an initial exchange offering. What do we mean by that? It means you have the smart contracts, yes, but everything is being controlled by this exchange. You don't really need to trust the token you're buying. Why? Because this exchange is doing the research for you. So all you have to do is to come here, say, oh, by the way, StepIn has been another extremely popular move to earn project. And I was surprised today as I was doing research to see that it was actually launched on the Binance Launchpad. So these guys are creating extreme amount of value, and you know what that means. Spread out enough value, that value, chances are it's going to reflect back onto you. And that's why I say the Binance ecosystem, I did it in one of my videos, I think it's one of those cryptos or ecosystems that's going to exist in the next 10 years. So of course, this is what their launchpad looks like. The StepIn is finished, and you can also look at the pools. The pools are there, like Cake Pool, BNB Pool. So obviously for these things to interact with the blockchains, they have to be run by smart contracts, but remember, they're sitting on a centralized entity, so you got to be careful. You have to make your decisions out there. Like for example, Celsius Network, the lending platform, those are centralized ecosystems. I've done videos about them, so if you're not too sure about the decentralized ecosystem and centralized ecosystem, then you might want to watch some of those videos. Now there's a very good write-up from the academy of Binance.com, which of course you want to read it from these guys, because they're the guys who have been in the trenches dealing with this kind of thing, where they talk about what is an initial DEX offering, and they go in depth about what the different models mean. Now I'm not going to read these full articles. I had planned to do that, but I'm not going to do that. I can just summarize. So in here, they talk about the initial DEX offering, and I can just read for you the beginning part, or the first part here, the first paragraph. An IDO is a crypto token offering run on a decentralized exchange. Liquidity pools play an essential role in IDOs. So reflect that on initial exchange offering, which is run on a centralized exchange, but they still have liquidity pools, just like you've seen with the Binance Launchpad. Okay, so they play an essential role in IDOs, or initial DEX offerings, by creating liquidity post sales. So a typical IDO lets users lock funds in exchange for new tokens. During the token generation event, sometimes it's the acronym is written as TGE. So some of the raised funds are then added with the new token to a liquidity pool before being returned later to the project. So basically you have liquidity pools that were the technology that was fronted, though, that sparked off true decentralized exchanges and finance and all these. The current problems in there because of how many, but let's not sidetrack. So essentially you have those liquidity pools, and the new token that's being launched wants that liquidity. So you might say, let's launch our token in exchange for BNB tokens. So we're going to say a MAWA pool. So that MAWA pool, we need a lot of people to promise that they're going to buy our tokens, and then we're going to create a pool which is comprising or consisting of MAWA tokens and the Binance tokens. So that essentially creates liquidity. Someone with BNB tokens can exchange them. They can easily be converted from one to another. So that provides liquidity. If you already have a whole bunch of those other tokens that you've locked up for team support, that liquidity will essentially determine the price of that token, and your other tokens that you kept will accrue more value. Now, of course, as you continue to develop your ecosystem, if your tokens become more valuable, then that gives you more finances to keep building out a meaningful a product. Now, what is a token offering? Now, here they go into what a token offering is, and they talk about the initial exchange offering, which we've talked about, like an example of the BitTorrent and the Fetch.AI tokens, which were launched on the Binance launchpad, or another example is the step-in token, which is fronting in move to earn. So here they talk about also initial exchange offering, which you talked about, where so you can have a working with a local financial regulator. Now you can have a security token offering. So what that means, which is they're writing as an STO, is that you have these tokens that are mirroring securities of maybe a public company. So you want to create an initial offering of these tokens representing your shares. So obviously all this stuff has been there, but it's still new and it's still very experimental. And of course, initial coin offerings, as we've seen. Now, this particular article is about IDOs, or initial DEX offering. But guys, if you're interested in this kind of thing, then I urge you to actually search your Google, say Binance initial DEX offering. This article is going to take you through the process of, like, also show you things like initial farm offering. So while the model above is a typical IDO, token offerings are always changing. For example, we also have the initial farm offering model, which is increasingly popular. So most people are going for the initial DEX offering because it's easy, the barrier to entry is smaller, and you can easily launch something. But of course, some of them are starting to require things like know your customer, so anti-money laundering, which is AML, and stuff like that. So because different regulations, depending on how you are, you have to design your smart contracts to fit your particular. For example, if China was to legalize crypto again and they want to monitor the companies that are doing DeFi, of course you have to do KYC and AML with the people that are using your decentralized exchange, because there's ultimate control there. So what is the difference between an IDO and an ICO? So this is, I guess, where we can end it or summarize it. The methods used in an ICO, in an IDO, and an IEO. So in other words, initial coin offering, initial DEX offering, which is initial decentralized exchange offering, and IEO, which is initial exchange offering, which fits into a centralized exchange. So they are quite different, these methods. Even though the results are mainly the same, here's a quick overview of the key differences. So the IDO, the IEO, and the ICO. So in the vetting process, the DEX, or the decentralized exchange, vets the project. Then in case of an IEO, the centralized exchange, or SEX, vets the project. In an ICO, no vetting process, as the project runs the sale themselves. So you have to get in there, determine that these guys are not fraud, that they're not scammers, they're not going to rug pull you, essentially pull the value right from under your feet. And then when you go into fundraising, in initial DEX offering, the DEX handles investors' funds. So these smart contracts, the people behind that decentralized exchange, of course, the level at which it's decentralized, that's arguable. That's a very, no one has figured these things out yet. Fundraising in an initial exchange offering, the SEX handles investors' funds, so that, like in this case, Binance or wherever they're launching from, or Coinbase or whatever, they'll handle the investors' funds. So in an ICO, the project handles the investors' funds. Of course, so you have to determine where you want to fit depending on what you're building, what you're doing. Smart contracts. What about the smart contracts? The DEX creates and runs smart contracts. In an IEO, the centralized exchange creates and runs the smart contracts. And in ICO, the project creates and runs a smart contract. And then token listing, liquidity pools open on the decentralized exchange. So you have these liquidity pools that people can trade with on a decentralized exchange. In an centralized exchange, or IEO, the exchange lists the token. So normally exchanges have way more liquidity, attention, and already thousands of users, if not millions. So you have a better chance of getting more eyes or even raising more money when you're using an IEO. So you better build a substantially good project. And then an ICO, the project has to find an exchange to list on. So in summarization, know your customer and anti-money laundering. IDO, no. Unless you're in a jurisdiction where you want to really focus on this, maybe you're trading securities or equities, stuff like that. So in an IEO, probably yes. And in an ICO, no. So you have to measure your risk. So where can I find IDOs? You can find different token listings. For example, on CoinMarketCap, they have a list, and CoinGecko as well. So they have some of the upcoming. By the way, Binance owns CoinMarketCap, so you have to put that into consideration. So you might want to use both CoinGecko and CoinMarketCap. And these guys, they list some tokens that launched in the past as I guess top launchpad coins by market capitalization. Some are not listed there. I'm not seeing them here, so I guess the list is not fully substantial. So you have to use both platforms to try and understand, and also you have to do your own research in these projects to try and understand where they are, how they've followed up with these after they've done these offerings. Are they anywhere today? Are they not here? So make sure you look out for the teams, the product being fronted, and are these people serious? Who's backing them? So stuff like that is very important. Now, of course, you will get more details about all these, how they work, especially if you're serious about building an application in this space. And you have the conclusion, which I have to read for you. So with their mix of ease of use, affordability, and accessibility, ICOs have become a standard fundraising model for many new projects in the crypto market. So in fact, token offerings have become an industry in itself. To summarize, you're usually safer taking part in a sale through a decentralized liquidity exchange than a project. So nevertheless, a huge part of success in an IDO is picking the right project. For this, nothing beats good old-fashioned research in the crypto space. Now guys, I like the way they concluded that. Make sure you do your own research, actually, just any kind of research. Make sure you take everything you get online with a grain of salt and pair it with something else. Don't just have one source of information. Otherwise, what happens? You get wrecked in the end. Alright guys, I really hope you learned something. I'm going to post the link of this document in the description so you can check it out yourself, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye bye.